This is Groove Talk with FrogE Style.
Welcome to another episode of Groove Talk, everybody. On this episode, I am joined by Turner, and he is part of the band Woodhawk.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. So I guess just to start, why don't you kind of give us a little bit of background information on Woodhawk and yourself and stuff like that?
Yeah, Woodhawk's like, I guess, a hard rock, stoner rock band from Calgary. Been around for 5 years now, I believe. And yeah, we're just a three-piece kind of, just a riff rock band. But yeah.
Cool. So how did it all come together?
The bass player in my band, Mike, and I have been playing in bands together since we're like 11 years old. Like, Mike taught me how to play guitar.
Okay.
And yeah, so I've always been playing in bands with him, and we played in many kind of different punk bands and stuff over the years. And we would tour Canada and kind of just be losers when we were 17 and 18 and stuff. And when our last band kind of dissolved, we still kind of wanted to do something else, and so we kind of just formed Woodhawk. And we had a couple like I called them temporary drummers, but they were kind of drummers who were like interested in helping us get going, but kind of were pretty upfront about not really wanting to commit to it.
Okay.
Like, oh, that's perfect. So we did that. We were able to kind of play some shows and play with friends and kind of keep it casual. And then we met Kevin, our drummer now, who's been in the band for, I guess, the majority of the time now. And yeah, we met him because we were playing shows actively and just met him, and he was very interested in joining. And the rest is now what Woodhawk is known as.
Awesome. So I guess what kind of made you guys lean towards more of like a stoner rock kind of sound, aside from, like you said, you played in punk bands before? So what kind of made you go towards this in this direction?
The last tour I had done in my punk band, I was very kind of still green in terms of what I would even say like classic rock was, to an extent. Like, I kind of knew all your hits and your Q107 stuff. I own Dark Side of the Moon, and stuff like that. And but the drummer I was playing with at the time was very into the old school classic rock, and Black Sabbath was his favorite band ever. And I kind of was green in the sense of knowing Iron Man, Paranoid. But he would go in every city he'd buy a new CD, and he'd buy like more Sabbath stuff, and he would buy Mastodon and all these different bands, and then he would just put them on because all we had was a CD player in our van. And I was just kind of just fell in love with all this stuff that I was like kind of guilty of never hearing before. And when we got back from our punk tour, we kind of looked at each other and I said, I can't be in a punk band anymore. I'm like, yeah, I can't either. And like, this just isn't me. Like I was the only one who was kind of behind the times, so to speak. But it really just kind of changed me on that tour, and kind of, yeah. So since then, I've just always wanted to play something more heavy and dark and riffy, as they all say.
Cool. I feel like or a lot of people I've talked to, at least, they always kind of, it seems like they start out with punk music, and that's like their introduction into either like the metal world or like the progressive rock world or something like that. It's like, that was my journey. I started out with like punk, and I was like, I was kind of looking for something angry. I was a teenager. I was angsty and stuff like that. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, this is like loud and angry and fast. I'm like, yeah. But then that led me to like metal, and that also led me to, different kinds of classic rock and like Tool and Mastodon, and it just branched out from there. And now I can barely even listen to punk, like certain types of punk, like, without being kind of like, It's like beautifully sloppy, and I think every kid is just like that. You always start out as kind of, I'm going to make a rock band, and you're like, I'm going to cover some Jimi Hendrix, but you realize you're just so bad at it, and then you just kind of, you end up just becoming a punk band because no drummer can stay in time when they're a kid, and they just keep speeding up and speeding up and speeding up. And so I think it's just a natural progression. Everyone kind of starts there, whether they like to admit it or not. Yeah, no, totally. And like, don't get me wrong, I still love punk music.
Oh yeah,
like punk music is still awesome, but my tastes have broadened, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I look for something that's more, I don't know, creative, technical.
Yeah.
Like Mastodon, or like metal players are some of the most like technically sound instrumentalists that I think across all genres, I feel.
Yeah, like I like when I kind of switched my take on what I wanted to do, like I got more into kind of like the blues playing, so I tried to like change how I played, and I realized how it just kind of evolved from a certain aspect of how people would jam, but they would kind of still sit in the same kind of scale range. But it was like, wow, this is a bit more like expressive and long, but you're all still kind of figuring out where to go at the same time. And I always found that kind of interesting, even though we're not a jam band at all. I don't think we've ever jammed once.
So I guess how do Woodhawk songs come together then?
I would say that every record has been different.
Okay.
So the EP that we put out in 2014, that was actually written and recorded technically by our old punk band. And it was done, and we had the original, the punk band, do the drums to it, and we broke up and went, man, I hate the drums to this. And we had one of our session buddies come in and completely redo them, and then we redid the guitars, but everything was kind of written kind of from like Mike and I just sat down and wrote riffs and kind of just recorded them and then had someone do the drums. Like, it was very kind of built in a studio, so to speak.
Okay.
And then when Kevin joined, we had kind of had a handful of songs that were written, and then another handful that Kevin was very much involved in the writing, and we were very kind of trying to see what he had to bring to the table. So I write a lot of like our music and stuff, and I was trying to be very like restrained and trying to make sure that like for the record Beyond the Sun, Kevin got a lot of expressiveness and Mike got a lot of expressiveness to really kind of let it kind of be a cohesive thing, and it worked really well. But then for this record, for the new one that comes out, Violent Nature, I kind of, when we were starting to do it, the same kind of like message that we were going behind, like this was much more like honest record. It's a lot darker, and there was kind of no way for us to kind of just, so to speak, jam and write these riffs and kind of build the songs without it kind of losing its like kind of heart. And so with this record, I took more of a standpoint of kind of building the skeletons of the songs more and taking a bit of a different approach and kind of saying, hey guys, I think I have something that's kind of done, but let's make it better. And let's make it what Woodhawk would make it, because some of the stuff was written on an acoustic guitar and that would never fly in this band. And so that was kind of like, every record's been a little different. I kind of like that we have that kind of growth of like, they all kind of, everyone has their own part. And I don't think the end result of this record would have worked if I just did it myself. Yeah. But I don't think we could have done it the same as any of the other ones in the past. So yeah, they're all kind of different. I like that.
Cool. So is this new record, is it like kind of a different sound from Beyond the Sun, or is it still kind of similar vibe? Or
I think like anything, you want growth and you want to evolve and get better, and I think we did. I mean, we worked really hard on this, and I think it's darker in the sense that we dropped the science fiction kind of themes like all the way throughout, and like we all kind of went through our own, like, I don't want to use the word as extreme as trauma, but we kind of all went through our own stuff over the past 2 to 3 years that was really hard not to kind of like just not talk about it. And so in the songwriting, sometimes what would have maybe been more of an upbeat riff or an upbeat kind of style didn't really fit when we're kind of singing about some topics that were a little bit closer to home, and it was like, this doesn't, so kind of trying to write it darker with that intent. I think it's still a Woodhawk record, it still sounds like it, but it sounds like we now have something to say, would be my kind of take on it.
Okay, cool. I feel like a lot of bands, at least, like when they're first getting started, they kind of, it's hard being vulnerable. It's hard being vulnerable for anybody, you know? Of course. So it's easy to write songs about science fiction or superheroes or something like that, And as you see, I think it's like kind of a mark of growth in a band when they start writing about like more personal stuff and stuff like that, Yeah,
I found it like, it was when we were doing this one, like, I didn't share my lyrics with Mike, who's the other like kind of backup singer, until like they were done, and I was like, all right, this feels like a little bit more than I'm kind of willing to say here. So I was kind of holding them back for a long time, which, I mean, to an extent kind of put us behind in certain elements, which is my fault. But yeah, I don't know, like it was, I kind of, our end result with this was, even if no one else liked it and no one ever heard it, we were all just really proud of it because we all can relate to something within it. And I think it's much more of a close tie to us as people and us as artists and the way we grew over the last 2 years, opposed to just kind of singing about like the wizards and like Star Wars again and stuff. And I love it for what it was. I like that that's where we were then, and it was fun to hide behind metaphors for an album. But I think that it's much more interesting, to be honest. Like I just found myself relating to more of that music that I listened to. Like I just
yeah, definitely. And like, don't get me wrong, I still love songs about Star Wars. Who doesn't love a good Star Wars song?
Yeah, like you still need like your good party music to the extent, and you still need like you still want science fiction. Like I still love like The Sword and a lot of those kind of things for that storytelling, but like I also really like stuff that's a bit more kind of honest, and I was like, that's a really dark lyric. That's sad.
Yeah, like Mastodon Crack the Sky, I think, is almost a perfect example. Like,
totally.
Yeah.
That is a perfect record.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's great.
Oh, actually, when that first came out, I saw Mastodon in Calgary, and they played, it was just when it came out, and they played it from start to finish, just live, and it was beautiful.
It's like everyone I've talked to who went to that show has said that, and I've never seen Mastodon before.
Yeah.
I've always been away when they're in town, or I'm in the city that they're in the next day, but I've never seen them, and everyone always says, "Oh, the Crack the Sky was the best one." Like,
yeah.
Of course it was.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I can say that because I saw them in Mexico City as well.
Oh, okay.
I went to there was like a metal festival down there, and we ended up getting a really good deal. We flew down there, and Mastodon was playing at night, and the entire day it was just pouring rain. Like, I've never been so wet in my life, but there was lightning and thunder, and they were on this huge stage, and as they start playing Blood and Thunder, lightning is cracking over them.
Oh, man.
And I was just like, I don't think this can be, I'm never going to see this again. Like,
yeah, that's epic.
So the Crack the Sky thing was great, but that might still be my favorite Mastodon show.
That's fair.
So have you performed a lot of these newer songs on stage yet, or?
No, only 3 of them. We kept, like, out of the 9 that are coming out, we kept 6 of them really, like, kind of tight knit and stuff. With the lead single that came out a couple weeks ago being one of the songs that we hadn't played yet. So we like to kind of keep stuff secret. I don't know, like I would like to have kept the whole thing a secret until it comes out, but it's also good to still be involved. Like for an audience member, I'd get tired of seeing the same set all the time, and I get tired of, I don't know if I get tired of playing the same thing all the time, but I definitely, as a listener, I think I'd like kind of running out of reasons to go see a band if they're constantly touring, and it's like, well, you played the same thing last time. So
yeah, that's fair. So do you like, I know you said that you were a little bit more vulnerable with these songs, so do you maybe foresee there being any issues playing them live at all, or? No,
not at all. I've found it's like very like therapeutic.
Yeah.
Like for the 3 that we have been playing, and I'm like, we had a few people, we did a tour in May who were like, would hear a couple lines and go, oh man, like, I liked that, like, thank you. And I was like, oh, cool. And like, I can't wait to actually hear it, like, and record it. I'm like, hey man, that's nice that like you heard a couple things that for me probably mean something totally different than what they mean for you, but that's awesome that it kind of is, before anyone knew it was coming out, was still kind of hitting the right people in the right place, which was good, because I mean, I think like just saying it was the most important thing, like regardless of what it was, like, so.
Yeah. Well, that's the beautiful thing about music too, right, is like, you can be saying something and somebody will hear that and it'll mean something completely different to them, but you still are connecting in the same way, you know? You're still having that emotional response, like, and maybe that's the same with everything, like all art, but yeah, I feel like it's almost unique to music in a certain way, like.
Yeah, it's yours to interpret. Like, you can kind of feel about it however you want. That's why, like, you might not like the same band as the person next to you, but because something about that connects with you or them differently, and that's just the way it sits with us. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I always thought of the cool idea that everyone, like, how they always say that, like, the way you see red is different than the way I would probably see red.
Yeah.
But I always wonder, like, how people hear things. Like, it's like, do you just hear it a little different than me? Like humans are weird, man.
Yeah, humans are super, like, because we only have these words to describe what we're seeing or hearing, and you can, like, it's the same with, like, genres, you know? We only have these imperfect words to describe what music is, what sounds are.
Yeah.
And, yeah, exactly. It could be completely, what I'm hearing could be completely different from what somebody else is hearing.
Oh, yeah.
And I almost guarantee that it is, you know? Because that's why, yeah, like you said, some people connect so hard with certain bands.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, that's fascinating, actually. I think about that a lot, especially the color thing, because you can only describe red as red.
Yeah.
But what's red to you might be
blue to me.
Exactly,
like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I can't go on those tangents for too long. It's like I just lose my mind if I just go a little too deep into those.
Yeah, I have a whole other podcast that's like dedicated to those tangents.
Oh,
so,
man.
Yeah, it's a fun one to do. So maybe what's one thing that you learned from recording your EP and Beyond the Sun that you took and you applied to the recording of this album?
Always learning where to be more professional and where to kind of let someone else like give you their opinions and their ideas. Like, so with the EP, I worked with a guy locally in Calgary and it was great. And I think his ideas helped very well to get that to where it was. But I learned a lot about how I wasn't as like tight of a player as I should have been and stuff like that. And I kind of didn't really know how to like articulate words as best for singing. Like, so I'd like, oh, you're kind of losing syllables, you're losing this. And I'd blow my voice after doing a song. There's a lot of things I learned. So when we went to Beyond the Sun, that was a very, very professional studio. And so working with someone like Jesse Gander at Rain City we kind of had that fear going into it of him. Like, man, this guy's got like Junos. Like, we should probably be really prepared. And so we worked really hard to be very prepared, but I still learned so much. Like, we were well trained and well rehearsed, but I still learned a lot and kind of learned when to say, yeah, you know what, Jesse's right, this is a better idea. And also learned when to say, no, I think we have to stand up for this one for ourselves because we feel good about this. And so then when going into Violent Nature, we personally put a lot more trust into Jesse because we just said, look, we would send him the demos like a month or so in advance and tell him to tell us what to change. And we I think took like 98% of his suggestions and changed stuff and made it this way and that way. And we said, yeah, this is a really good idea. Like, this didn't hurt it in any way. Whereas we kind of we had more trust for it and just kind of learned to adapt and learn to get better at our craft so that we were ready for it and we were just kind of could make the record that we knew needed to be made.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of hard, letting other people kind of into your art, like this,
especially when it's vulnerable and expressive. And it's kind of like, are you telling me what to say? But it's just, I don't know. It was good. Like, you're always learning and you always want to get better. And I hope that I never go into a studio and it's just like cut and dry, perfect. Like, that was great. Anyone got any suggestions? Like, I kind of like being told that you're not doing that good and you can do better.
Yeah.
Because then when you get it, it's like, it's a really rewarding feeling. Like, coming out of the process of getting that whole thing done was just really rewarding because from day one, you get chewed out for certain things. You learn like, okay, we can do this better. This is a really good idea. Let's run with it. And then coming to the end and kind of just sitting there and going like, we have a really good record that's done. And we're like, wow, I'm really... 10 days ago, this wasn't the way this was. So this is really, really cool. And I will still take away from this one to go into the next third one that we do. I'll still kind of always learning, always trying to grow with it.
Yeah. And I think that's really key, not just for like art and music, but like life in general.
Oh, yeah.
Just growth. It's nice to see growth.
Oh, totally.
in anything that you're really doing. And I think that, as a society, that we a lot of people kind of shy away from that a little bit. We're such like a kind of like an instant gratification society, so we don't like hard things, it almost seems like.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's where you find kind of yourself and who you are is in that growth, and yeah, I'm gonna veer this off somewhere else. So what's maybe one thing that you really learned about yourself in the recording process?
I learned to have better vocal control was the biggest thing, I guess I could say.
Okay.
In terms of that, is just kind of, that was like, I like anything like being a singer in a band is difficult, but I learned like how to get better at it and how to kind of maybe have more the projection of what I'm trying to, the power and stuff and emotion I'm trying to put into it without having to put all of that into it, and how to kind of just be better at those kind of things. But I also learned like mentally where my own threshold was for things and kind of like where, like not to get angry or not to get frustrated and where to be excited about things and all that kind of stuff. Like just kind of a mental and physical growth that was just kind of a good little boot camp.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything that was really challenging about recording this album?
I like to see things done a certain way and at a certain speed, and if anything throws us off track, I start to kind of just like I'm pacing around the studio and kind of just like, come on, like should have been done this by now. And it's worse if it's me who's doing it. Like I play guitar and sing in this band, so Kevin, our drummer, was done in like less than a day for his drums. He just knocked out, and then Mike touched up his bass the next day, and we were on to me doing guitar, and that was just me. So if anything was slowing us down, I'm like, yeah, we should have been a little bit a day ahead. Now I'm just like kind of like learning to kind of work through that and trying to figure out what was next and stuff. So that was the biggest struggle, but I mean, we caught up very quickly and ended up still finishing ahead of time. But I need to learn to kind of just like it's hard when I'm the one who's like holding us back, but there's nothing you can do about it. Like if the computer crashes, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So yeah, I guess how do you personally work through those kind of like challenges then?
I learned to shut up. I don't know. Like I would, any challenge I'd kind of work through, I just kind of learned to trust Jesse whenever he said.
Okay.
So if it was like, he's very good at kind of getting the best out of you in the sense of if I'm, let's say I'm messing up a guitar part, he's like, you're so close. It's like, I know I'm not close, but he's really good at kind of convincing you, and then he'll be like, that's it. And he's like, let's just do one more for fun. And you'll be like, that was the one. But he knows how to kind of relax you. And I watched him do it with all of us. And it was like just kind of again, putting our trust in him was very much a good kind of trust of judgment.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I feel like the same way that you guys, get better at your instruments over time, he gets better at that over time.
Totally.
Like learning the same way I get better at podcasting over time. It's all about that growth type thing. And I really think that those type of people are special, like the musicians or the music lovers, let's call them, who want to share other people's music or help make other people's music a possibility or get it to like the widest amount of people possible. I really have a special place in my heart personally, I guess, for those types of people, like producers, the people who are working in the studio, the people who throw the shows, the venues and all that, just the people who are out there spreading the music, especially local music, to as many people as possible. And
especially not for their own personal gain.
Yeah.
Jesse's still just like living in Vancouver with expensive rent, and he's not very expensive to go work with. Like compared to the amount of studios, like there's the Warehouse, which like Mike Fraser does AC/DC works out of and stuff in Vancouver, who's like 3-4 times the rate of what Jesse is.
Yeah.
And that guy probably has a great, nice big house in New Westminster and all that. But I think the fact that Jesse does this, and like I was talking to him last week, and he just flew out to Bratislava to go record a band in like their church because that's all they could kind of afford. And he just brought his laptop and like a small little interface and was kind of working with it on a very limited budget because he thought it was cool to get to go to Bratislava and record a record in this weird church. And he was like, this is cool. But they sought him out to do that. And I think that's amazing that he's not saying like, okay, gotta pay for my flights. I need a per diem of this much. I need hotels. I need meal service. It's just, no, come make your record and sleep on your floor.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that because that band will probably have an amazing sounding record because someone like Jesse is kind of willing to just hop on a plane and do that for people.
Yeah, and you can tell that because of things like that, you can tell he's passionate about the music.
Yeah, he believes in the projects he works on, which I always really appreciated.
Yeah. That's something that I really had to learn about for myself is if you're not excited about the thing, then don't say yes to it,
Yeah.
In the early days, I was always just like yes to everything, But then I would end up working on these projects where it was like, this isn't my best work.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing this band justice because I'm not excited about it, And it's learning to say no is a very hard thing when you're doing something creative and just getting going, I feel.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. Have you guys, I guess in terms of shows or anything like that, have you guys had any issues with that, just saying no?
I wouldn't say we have any issues with it. I think we've gotten more confident in saying no.
Yeah.
And like kind of, like not to kind of dumb it down, but we kind of learned where like we can value ourselves to the right degree, and if we if we feel something's not fair, then we'll just happily say it and say, this isn't in our best interest. And you can either discuss with the other party, or you can just walk away and say no. And I think sometimes saying no is like, it obviously can still be a bad thing and you can lose out on opportunities. But I think at the end of the day, like, this isn't our full-time job. We're not all losing like money every time you say no to an opportunity to something. I think we're still trying to balance everything as best as we all can. But I don't think, if anything, saying no has given us more control.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. And just like knowing where your value lies, you know, like knowing what you bring to the table, basically. Because I feel like that's another hard thing when you first get going, is to know that, you know, because you feel kind of like, you're like, oh, I'm the new band, or I'm the new podcast, I should be doing everything for free or for publicity or whatever. And like, yes, to a certain degree, you want to put yourself out there, but you also have to like value yourself accordingly, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you still bring value to any bill, so.
I always say, like, to new bands, I say when you're a brand new band, you can say yes as much as you want. Like, the first couple of months, people are going to come see you and kind of support you for a while, and then I think you have I'd say like a 6-month window of like, take a show every 2 weeks and put out lots of records and singles and do as much as you can, but then start to space it out, because after about 6 months, like, people start to lose an attention span. So then as a band, you have to learn to say no, and you can always kind of separate the bands that like maybe still get stuck in they play every week at the same bar and stuff, and it kind of unfortunately can teeter off when you say yes too much, because you don't know which opportunity is better than the next. Yeah. And it's kind of a hard thing to kind of say no, but I think you'll see more growth. Like, even in your own like personal work, it's a good thing to still say, no, I'm not, that's not in my best interest. You'll find it does actually help you long term.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, for sure. And also, just saying yes, you don't want to burn yourself out.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we only have a limited amount of energy. We have a limited amount of time. We have a limited amount of everything, except ambition, but so you don't want to burn yourself out either, because that's a real thing that can happen. And there's nothing that kills passion quicker than burning yourself out, I feel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you touched on it a little bit, but how do you balance your everyday life with like band life?
I will say it was easier up until like a month ago.
Okay.
Like, we had the kind of consistent, here's what our rehearsal schedule, and here's where we're going to tour, and kind of balance within holiday time and between like partners and stuff, and when we take vacations, and kind of just balance everything. But we've booked ourselves all the way into the fall of next year with being away, and kind of have we had the talk that every band kind of says they have to have of like do we quit our jobs for this? And it's like, we kind of had to have at what point do we try and put a little bit more effort into this, I guess, is the better kind of thing. And so we're going to try and, over the next 2 years or so, try and focus a bit more on Woodhawk rather than our jobs as much, because it's kind of proving to have a bit of steam and a bit of value, so we can try and work with it and run with it as best as we can, because we're still young enough that I think it's feasible, and we don't have like kids and actually, Kevin's a kid. That's not fair. Kevin's got a kid, but she lives in Kamloops. Shout out to Bailey. And but yeah, like, we're not all kind of like supporting these big houses and stuff. Like, it's very much a dream and a goal to kind of be able to do this as best as you can. And sometimes as best as you can means putting more time into it. And so it's just kind of we're going to try and reassess the balance and kind of balance the scales a little differently in the coming months.
What I guess kind of what does it entail to like put more effort into it like that? Like, how has it changed from the beginning? Like, what's different about it?
We would probably tour 2 weeks a year at most. Okay. From beginning to kind of now, and we're going to look at more like 3 to 4 months. Okay. On like a more average, and we'll, like, next year we're going to Europe for the first time. Oh, nice. For a few weeks, and we're doing the full Canadian, and then we're going fall later on going to USA in the fall. And it's kind of just a lot of commitments where you can't fly to Europe just for a couple days and come home. It's very expensive to go do, and you kind of got to make it worth your while. And same with the States, going through the P2 visas and everything else, all that stuff. you still have to kind of like really make it worth your while. You're paying to get in somewhere to like play and do all these things and try and branch out and expand your business, that you kind of have to put your own time as your investment, because we are the investment.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you said something right there. And again, we touch on it a lot in this podcast, but, you know, your business, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Your band is your business, and you kind of have to treat it accordingly.
And all bands should register as businesses.
Yeah.
Go register as a business, get a tax number, file your taxes, get a credit card, get a bank account. Like, even if you're losing money all the time, and according to the government standpoint, it is still very helpful for you.
Yeah.
We've been a business for a little over 3 years now, registered, and it was the best decision we ever made. Like, getting, like, just helps with taxes, it helps with purchases, it helps with grants, just helps with everything. We've never gotten a grant before, but you kind of need it to nudge it that way.
Yeah. Okay. And I think it's a talk that every band, you know, kind of has to sit down and be like, so what are we doing here?
Yeah.
You know? Like, are we going to try and make this a thing, or is this just for fun?
Yeah.
Both are fine, you know, but
if you're going to grind out, like, kind of weekend shows, like, in locally and kind of around, and, like, very much like the hobby band, there's no reason to register as a business unless you're, like, generating $35,000 per year, which is just impressive. But if you're going to try and do more and more with it, and do even, like, smaller tours and stuff, and, like, even if you're just playing, like, around in Western Canada and stuff, like, there's a lot of things you can kind of really redeem out of that. And I think, like, there are the funds available, and the problem is, like, that no one's just ever claiming them.
Yeah.
And, like, music itself, just playing, like, door-to-door cover kind of thing, doesn't pay that well. Like, we all couldn't afford to pay the gas, pay ourselves, pay everything that technically goes into it without being on the road 365 days a year as a full-time job, or at least without the help of being a business and kind of starting to assess your finances appropriately.
Yeah. No, I think that's really good advice for, anybody who wants to take a shot at it, you know, or at least just, you know, take it a little bit more seriously, for sure.
Totally. And if you want any advice on how to start a business, you can email us at woodhawk@riffs@gmail.com. We have a PowerPoint presentation because we didn't know what to do when we did it. So we were asking all of our friends who had done it.
Yeah.
And our bass player, Mike, has made, like, a little PowerPoint,
Yeah.
a little, like, how-to, like all the steps we did it. So the information is available. It's just we kind of tried to make a more compact version that anyone can figure out what they're doing.
Oh, that's awesome. Like, I think that's invaluable information for any new bands out there who are trying to take it seriously and stuff.
Totally.
Because it's hard to learn all of that stuff and just figure out all of it. It can be difficult and overwhelming at times, for sure.
Oh, definitely. And we're very much, like, I find the music communities in general are the good ones are very supportive, and we have always been very appreciative of everyone who's kind of given back to us in every way. So I'm always trying to, like, if there's anything we can ever do, like, to kind of help, it's always very, very good. So yeah, PowerPoints.
Awesome. Is there anything that maybe you can remember from earlier on where somebody kind of went out of their way to help you guys out?
Oh man. When I was playing in my punk band when I was a kid, I was 18, but when I was playing in my punk band, like, at the time, one of my favorite bands from Toronto was Die Mannequin, and I used to go to the shows when they'd come through town and stuff, and I kind of got to know them. And then when I felt my punk band was worthy enough, I was like, hey, you guys should put us on a bill when you come through Calgary. And they're like, oh, you have a band? And I was like, I do. And sent them the demo, and they were like, totally. And I was like, whoa. And I always really appreciate that from a young age. And so whenever anyone tries to, like, play with, from when I was in a punk band to even to Woodhawk now, and sends us something, we listen to everything. We always try and find, like, to give any band leverage. I think that's the best. And that show was great for us when we were kids, because, I mean, playing to a sold out, like, Dickens or whatever back then was a really big deal.
Yeah. And
it still is. And it's not something we could have gotten on our own just by trying to knock on the right doors. And we got in because we had people like that. But we have a friend in, like, Vancouver from the band We Hunt Buffalo. When we were doing Beyond the Sun recording there, the story I always love to tell is that we were second day in for tracking, and my phone was on silent, but Ryan from We Hunt Buffalo calls Jesse and says, tell Turner to check his phone. And so Jesse stops the recording and says, hey, we're in take 5. I'm turning to check your phone. Ryan's trying to get a hold of you. And so I check my phone, and he got us an opening slot at the Commodore, opening for Airborne.
Oh, nice.
To a sold-out show, and we were like, that's, again, being it's still newer for Woodhawk, that was a crazy opportunity to play for, like, 1,100 people.
Yeah.
Scariest show I've ever played. And that was, it was awesome. But he stuck his neck out for us, like, kind of, we knew each other, like, fairly well, but not as well as he knew other local musicians. But he knew we were there, and we packed up our gear and went to the show the next day and came home and came back and started finishing tracking as if nothing happened. But I always really appreciated that, and he's always been like a really big kind of supporter of our band. So I love Ryan for that reason. He's given us a lot of really good opportunities just because he just kind of sticks his neck out for the right people. He's a good dude.
Awesome. I feel like a lot of people expect, like, you know, maybe the music scene would be a little bit more cutthroat than it is. You know what I mean? I feel like, but once you become a part of it and you're kind of enveloped in it, you just realize how friendly everybody is.
Oh,
like,
totally.
Everybody's just out there to kind of support each other and like boost each other up, because it's good for everyone. The more cool bands there are in the city, the more cool shows there are in the city. Like, so it's just, I feel like everybody's out there just trying to like boost everybody up, you know?
Yeah, and I find the bands with like egos and stuff don't last very long. And they wonder why they break up. Well, it's because there's too many egos in your band, and you're gonna kick each other out, which it doesn't work. But the bands who are always kind of supporting each other, like whether you're at all the shows or not, like just being there for each other and offering advice, and kind of overall just, we have a really good scene in Calgary, and I think at least in this kind of stoner rock scene, it's really good all over Canada. And I found that everyone's very supportive and kind of in any way they can be, and I've always just been impressed by that. Like whenever Woodhawk tours, I'm always surprised at the amount of like open doors we get and kind of like warm responses from people, and just people who want to keep seeing you do what you do. And so it's always meant a lot to me, and I always appreciated it for that. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, it's like the same with all the opportunities that I've had too with the podcast and stuff like that. It's just, I never thought that I would be able to take this thing that I just enjoy doing and like, you know, get into certain festivals for free or whatever, doing media and stuff like that, and just be embraced into a community with just open arms, and being like, oh, hey, you're doing a cool thing about the music scene. Hey, like, here's all this stuff. Like, you know, like, it still blows me away at how friendly the Calgary music scene is.
Yeah.
And just how many like good people there are within it. And it's mind blowing in a way, I guess. And it's something that whoa, cat. Not there. Thank you. Anywhere else, but and for everybody, that was Chester. He is part of a lot of podcasts. Yes, he is the unofficial mascot of Groove Talk.
Little keyboard feature.
Yeah. But the music scene is great. And I still find it very cool when people come up to me and they're like, you know, that was actually the first podcast we've been on. So thank you very much for like just taking the time to talk to us. I'm like, yo, thanks for, I still think that I'm this uncool dude and that all these bands are super cool, and I am not worthy, you know. Like
people like yourself are the reason that people hear about our bands, and we love it. Like you owe so much to any form of media, and I think it's very much taken for granted sometimes, and I love it. So thank you for having me.
So I guess, what's it like seeing kind of your fan base kind of grow, not just within Calgary?
That's been probably my favorite part of doing this.
Yeah.
And the reason I think we made the decision to kind of travel so much more is like, I never thought in my life I'd be like mailing records to Germany and like all over the world. And like, even when we're like touring and like we kind of work our way up from like an opening slot in Winnipeg to a headlining slot and it sells out, it's just kind of something that's still surreal to me. And it's kind of crazy to still see people get excited about like your own band outside of your own city, which is like in my punk bands was never the case. It was always just, we did it because it got us out of the house for the summer and we would drink warm beer in a van. That was the way to do it. But it's just so cool to kind of show up in a place and see return people, but see like, oh, I told my friend about your band. They love it. I come and like, wow, this is cool. This is growing. And so it's nice that what our band means to us can mean something to someone else is really kind of just fascinating. And I just very much appreciate it.
Do you have maybe a favorite place that you have played in so far?
Are you allowed to say it? I don't know. Like, you know, Winnipeg and Kelowna hold two really special places in our touring schedule. Winnipeg has just always been so welcoming, and I never understood why. From the first time we played there as like an opener to the last two times we've been there, it's just been like just so crazy. Like, people go nuts there, and always find that really, really crazy. Same with Kelowna, like lines up around the corner for people to get in, and I'm just like kind of still just like shaking my head at why, which is just, I really like that. I mean, obviously Calgary is like our home, and this is the place I don't think I could ever like be based out of anywhere else. We love this place so much. And yeah, but I think for outside of Calgary, Winnipeg and Kelowna really like kind of just did something for me very early on that kind of just sat right with us. We got really good treatment from venues and bars and other bands who were just so welcoming, and yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I can only imagine how cool it must feel to have your music appreciated outside of your hometown. Like,
yeah, it's weird.
And you guys said that you're planning a European tour as well?
Yeah, we're booking it right now.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, like when we did the EP, like kind of United Kingdom loves CDs.
Yeah.
Like, so we sold a lot of CDs over there. And Beyond the Sun started to sell more like records into Germany and everywhere else. And there was always kind of like we're going to tour Canada, we're going to tour this part. And people were like, Germany. And we kept kind of shouting it, and we're like, we got to get over there and try and find a way to do this. Like, whether we lose money or not, I think we just kind of, this is cool that there's like a solid chunk of people, I mean, in a massive continent, no less, but that are still kind of passionate about it. And they're the most vocal, I would say, out of all the online fans. So we're just trying to get over there, and they have great festivals and stuff. So to try and be a part of anything over there is just kind of cool. And we've never left Canada. Like, so that's really, really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be, I feel like just to do it for the experience aspect of it, you know? Like,
yeah, like my wife and I are taking a vacation right after the tour, and I was like, because we've been wanting to go to Europe ourselves, and I was like, well, if I'm already over there, it's one more flight for free, so why don't you just come meet us after? I'm like, oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
So I get to go like kind of do the tour for three weeks, and then I get to go travel and be a tourist for 3 weeks after, which is really nice. I mean, a great experience to kind of double down, if you will.
Yeah, that's real cool. And then you also have that like thing in your back pocket, but like, my band played in Germany.
Yeah.
You know?
To 2 people. But that's okay.
But that's
Those
okay.
2 people asked for it.
Yeah. It was still in Germany.
Yeah.
So I guess what do you think maybe Woodhawk has done differently or uniquely in regards to like marketing themselves?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't know. We try to be very honest in all of our approaches, but like we're all very funny, and we like our inside jokes, and we like that kind of stuff. We're very much a stoner rock band in terms of what the musical classification is, but we're not stoners. Like, we're very big like craft beer enthusiasts and stuff. So I think maybe even like the outlook of not celebrating things like 420, you know, that kind of stuff isn't really our crowd or our market.
Yeah.
But like last Friday, Mike and I went and brewed a beer with New Level Brewing for our release, and that was kind of a really cool experience, which is kind of a different approach that I don't know like a ton of bands that get to brew beer, and let alone with like a heavy metal brewery that's in Calgary. So I don't know, I think like kind of the beer thing has been really cool for us to kind of right on that. Like when we were touring out east and stuff, we were kind of hooking up with a lot of breweries and stuff that we're getting growlers and trying to try a bunch of new stuff to that was our kind of marketing ploy and stuff. And even for our Canadian tour that we're doing next year, we're reaching out to breweries and we're like, hey, instead of trying to, like, we had Big Rock sponsor one of our tours one time, and we loved it. And so to try and expand on that, because we have so many great small businesses and small breweries across Canada, we're trying to like kind of talk to more of them. Like, could we come by and maybe like swap records for a growler or something and kind of double expose this and stuff? And I think that that's kind of maybe more where we approach it, but also just like trying to be honest people. Like, we're all kind of weird and quiet and reserved in our own life, but we're still funny. I think like no one makes me laugh harder in this place in the world than Mike, and Mike's definitely our comedian, and I like that side of things kind of gets shown. And yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I have just recently actually gotten into the craft beer world in the past like year. I used to just be like a, you know, beer's beer type person, and then I started visiting some of the local breweries in town, and I love craft beer now.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
And like Calgary's a good place for it now. Like, there's so much. I used to be able to stay on top of it when there was like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
There's like 17 or 20 breweries in the city now. It's crazy.
Yeah, you can hit like 8 breweries all within walking distance.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
Yeah, and you're definitely hitting the last one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's man, I just it's so cool. I really enjoy that that's like happening in Calgary right now, just like the whole brewery explosion and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that is a cool thing to do for your release party, brewing your own beer and stuff like that. Is there any other kind of cool things that are happening at the release show, or?
Not at the show. What's October 1st? October 18th. We're doing Woodhawk ones. So like the YouTube show Hot Ones.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're gonna do like an Instagram and Facebook live, and we've collected a ton of hot sauces all over Canada that get hotter and hotter and stuff, and we even have the Hot Ones hot sauces. And one of our sponsors, Heartbeat Hot Sauce, has been on the show twice now, and they're on again. So we'll have some of their sauces and stuff. They're not like one of our sponsors for it and stuff for this one. Conflict of interest. But we're gonna have like a ton of hot sauce and stuff, and we're just gonna try and eat hotter and hotter wings and stuff. And as people ask us live questions and kind of talk to us, and New Levels helping us host it, and that'll be our we'll have some beer and stuff. And
oh, nice.
yeah, so we're taking a bit more of like a food and beer approach to our marketing opposed to marijuana.
Yeah, that's cool. That's like that's another kind of unique thing that you guys are doing that I don't know any other bands who are doing that. Yeah. So
we just punish ourselves.
Yeah, as any creative person does.
Yeah, exactly.
They go through a lot of punishment for their craft.
Yeah.
So about the release show, that's happening November
8th at the Palomino.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have Gone Cosmic and Flashback, who are like a newer band, opening it up, and yeah, it's gonna be a great show. Yeah. We have some tricks for that show. We're trying to put out like a bit more of a big, like a air quotation show, kind of for that one to kind of make it a bit bigger. So yeah, that'll be the Calgary release show, and then I think we're doing Edmonton the next night, which will be pretty good. And then we kind of just do the full Canadian tour in the spring.
Cool.
And stuff. Kind of try and actually hit everything, because you can only hit so much in Canadian winter before you spin off the road.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to be driving through the mountains.
No. Last year we were touring out east, and we were leaving Barrie, Ontario, and it was like nice and rainy in Toronto. It was like denim weather, and then we hit about Barrie and it just started snowing like crazy. We pulled over to kind of see, I have some family out there, and we pulled over for lunch really quickly. And by the time we go to leave, we couldn't get up the hill. It was so snowy, and the highway was closed, and we started going up one of the long hills, and we just stopped moving and started just going backwards and started to kind of fishtail with the trailer. And just like that was terrifying to kind of like, this is awful. But we had to drive back an hour south towards Toronto, and we had to detour all the way back up through North Bay to get all the way up to Sault Ste. Marie and Sudbury. And it was like a 14-hour day of driving 50 kilometers an hour through snow and stuff. Ooh. And so I try and just push tours as far away from the possibility of snow.
Yeah.
But we have bunks in our like handy bus that we drive around in too. So we're usually sleeping in it. If you ever see us like touring in any sort of cold weather, we're probably sleeping in that bus, which is at times great, at times awful.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So yeah.
So offer them a place to stay if you see them in the winter time.
Yeah. Much appreciated.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the problem with, Canada is not just that. A, it's you get winter, and it sucks to drive anywhere in the winter time, and B, it's just huge.
Yeah, like it's trying to cross anywhere. Like I remember driving like 40 hours to get through like a little over 4 shows. Man, this is brutal. Like we were touring with Truck Fighters a couple weeks ago, and we had to overnight. We had to cross from Vancouver to Edmonton, but we got out of the venue at I think 2 in the morning after we unload all the gear and everything, and we just had to drive straight through the night because we had to be there at 4:00 p.m. the next day, and it was like something like 13 and a half hours plus losing an hour of time change. So we had no time to stop.
Yeah.
And that was probably the worst drive we've ever done, only because you think it's really easy to sleep in a bus, but when you're driving through the mountains still, and it's 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, it's just the whole way, you don't really sleep. And then when someone kind of taps out and says, I'm too tired, you have to take over, and you got to wake up and get going. That was the only like drive I wouldn't recommend doing again. I'd maybe leave yourself 2 hours where you actually pull over and can stop, but we didn't have that option, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, that was brutal.
Yeah, it sounds it sounds like it.
At least it was summer.
Yeah, okay, yeah. The added, yeah, that's a benefit for sure.
If it was like what it's like out now, I'd pull out. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I'd be like, we're not going to make it.
No.
We value our lives slightly more than the show, sorry.
I'd be putting my gear on a pallet and finding like the cheapest freight company to ship it out, and I'd be hopping on a plane.
Yeah.
I'd lose all my money to not have to drive in that.
Yeah, it can be pretty, even just in the city, it can be pretty sketchy out there, so I can't imagine the mountains. So what do you guys do to prepare for shows then? Is there anything special?
No, we just practice a lot.
Yeah.
We jam as much as we can. Like, our bass player Mike lives in Edmonton.
Okay.
He's lived there for a little over a year now. And so when he comes in like every 2 weeks, and we just do like weekend rehearsals, and then Kevin and I will rehearse throughout the week as much as we can. But we just try and use as much time as we can. So we'll do like 8-hour days of just like really long rehearsals, and just try and have fun with it, and kind of know when to kind of just hang out and stop playing the same 8 songs in a row, but also know when like to kind of work on something. So we just try and just practice a lot.
Yeah.
And also just like, I don't know, still have fun with it, but yeah, that's the gist of have fun with it.
Yeah, have fun with it. Yeah. Another great piece of advice.
Cliche, have fun.
Well, as you get older, I feel you realize that life is like all those cliches. They're cliches for a reason, because they're true.
Yeah. We take ourselves as seriously as about as seriously as we can, which is not that seriously. We take our business serious, but we don't take ourselves seriously enough to not have us fun. Like, fun is always we're trying to do first. If this wasn't fun, we wouldn't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, like, that's why you start playing guitar. If it's not fun, you should stop playing.
Yeah,
it sucks.
Exactly. Like, it's I feel like it's the same with any kind of artistic or creative thing. If it's not fun, then why are you doing it?
Yeah,
like,
if you lose interest in doing a podcast, you're just not going to keep doing it.
I'm not going to force myself to do a podcast. Yeah.
Get Chester to host it.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you guys ever get sick of playing the same songs, or
No. I'm proud of the way, like, everything like that we put out. Like, I like everything that we put out. I think I stand behind it still, which is really good, which makes that easier to kind of like always play. And I mean, when it's still kind of like the joke. We don't have any like hits per se, but like we still have songs that are maybe more popular than others that people like, that were singles and stuff. So I still like playing those, because those will usually get the best crowd reaction still, and it's usually kind of a way to kind of still reaffirm what we're doing. But no, I still I like all the songs. Like, it's nice to switch it up and stuff, but I still like to, like, I find when we tour consistently, I like playing the same thing every single night, because it just gets really well rehearsed, and you kind of find within every night where your leeway is and where you have to kind of still buckle down, and it's good to kind of have that muscle memory. Yeah.
I imagine that, like, you know, if you're on a tour like that, the more you play, like you said, the more you play it, the better you're going to get. And towards that end of that tour, you know, you're just going to be like so on point with all the songs and stuff like that.
They always refer to it as tour tight, is what I think. I've seen a band when they're tour tight. Like, yeah, it's just a different kind of experience. It's just like, it's what happened. Like, you can't replicate playing a show in your basement. Yeah. Like, you can practice for 8 hours a day, but you're not going to sweat on yourself just like standing there. You're not going to engage with an audience. So there's such a different experience that, like, it still kind of fuels it. I feel like every good show is like just as awesome as like a bad show. Like 200 or 2 people, it's still get to travel and do this, which is just pretty awesome to be able to do for a hobby and for a career one day, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like adding that live element into anything kind of like just makes it a little bit more exciting for everyone involved, because like the potential for fuck up is there, and like nobody's wishing the person to fuck up, but like, you know, seeing that they're not fucking up that's amazing, you know? Like and I think that's why kind of I feel like people are gravitating more and more towards, you know, things like podcasts or things like random YouTube channels that just show like what things are for what they are. You know?
Totally.
And people are kind of getting away from those like stage TV shows. Not saying that those aren't still great every once in a while, but I feel people are more attracted to like the real like grittiness of things nowadays. Yeah. It's just like very interesting to see, and I think that's why live shows are so special, you know?
Yeah, there's still a connection. I think that like we're all real. We're all still like, everyone is what they are. So I think just kind of being able to kind of put that more out in the open is just kind of a very unique experience, I think, in any form of art. Yeah. Whether it's music or actual like painting or art.
Yeah.
Or like podcasts. It's still just like kind of you put yourself out there, and to kind of get anything back or like to listen to it on the other side is just so like rewarding. Even if it's like, if my mom's the only person who ever listens to my record, I'm like, oh, it's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Anytime somebody comes up to me, is like, oh yeah, I listened to that episode with blah blah blah. I'm like, oh my god, you're listening? Like, thank you so much. Yeah, I definitely agree. Are there any kind of just final things you want to throw out there before we close this up?
No, I mean, like, thanks for having me on the show. This has been awesome.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to meet Chester, your cat.
Yeah, he's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's pretty rad. But yeah, no, thanks for having me. Woodhawk, riffs.com, I think. Fine, look us up.
Yeah.
If anyone knows how to get a hold of Jimmy Buffett, we'd love to play with him. Kenny Loggins.
Yeah. Awesome. I'll have all the links for your social media and stuff and your website. It'll all be in the episode notes. So if people want to find you, connect with you guys in any way, they can do that. Just go into the episode notes. It's real easy, everyone. And yeah, thank you very much for taking the time to be on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Have you ever done a podcast high five?
No.
You're the first podcast.
That was a solid sound, yeah.
Trust I put
If you liked this episode of the podcast, why not leave a review? You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. For up-to-date information on the podcast, follow us on Facebook and Twitter. You can find us at FrogE Style Productions. That's Frog, the letter E, Style Productions. For more ways to support the show, visit fsproductions.ca.